Hello, everybody. It's 1:50 a.m. Central Time on the 10th of September, 2023. Hope you're doing well. It's Sunday morning here in the United States, and I am doing an update. I do have some somewhat bad news for everybody on the earthquake in Morocco. Let me get a display capture turned on just so you can see where we're talking about here. The 6.8 to 6.9 up to 7.0 earthquake, they currently have it at 6.8. Now reported to have over 2,000 fatalities, and that's pretty significant. I'm not going to play the videos on it, but you can just see mainstream media is all over it, so you guys can go find the videos if you want. It's pretty serious, a lot of the damage. Now, the reason it's so serious, of course, is the construction. If we're all aware of this, so let me just get USGS coordinates and we'll go put them in over on Google Earth to show you the spot where it struck, and then the area, because it's on land in a somewhat rocky area, real hard jolts of seismic tension released and rock as opposed. Now, it didn't. The good news is it wasn't in a valley or a basin, so it didn't vibrate back and forth like some turned into jello almost. But you can see the type of construction that we're talking about here is this brick and mortar and cobble type construction, not steel reinforced on a lot of it. Of course, we are in Morocco, so this is something you would expect. The only good news is that the earthquake struck somewhat rural, out in the middle of nowhere, in comparison to where it could have struck. I mean, there are other larger cities. It was felt across the whole country. It was actually felt all the way north into South Europe and all the way east at Algeria and maybe even further. Big earthquake, the biggest in years for the whole location. Again, now there's reports that over 2,000 people have perished. Now, if we were to go through the planet and go to the opposite side, which I'm going to do right now, we'll bring it around over here, and that brings us to right here, where a 6.6 earthquake to 6.9, again, here it is, struck on the antipode. And antipode is just a fancy word for the opposite side of. So we had this earthquake on one side and this one on the other, and this one on the other side, this one here by New Zealand, it struck first. So the earthquake in Morocco is what we call an antipode earthquake. The opposite side of the planet gets struck with a similar or larger sized quake. This is a well-documented now scientific fact. There's been studies released on this about antipode earthquakes. Okay. So that being said, now a new 6.0 range earthquake has struck in our warned area, where we're looking for a magnitude larger or greater earthquake to strike. We're looking 7.0 or greater to strike right here at the S-shape bend in the plate. You see it's somewhat shaped like a letter S, and we have two letter Ds on either side where we look for deep earthquakes to strike. Well, a new 6 is struck there, and then now reports that Mount Krakatoa has put off a small little eruptive event, 4,000 feet high, not that big. But still, we now have Mount Krakatoa on the list, and we have a 6.0 earthquake in the warned area where I'm looking for a magnitude larger or greater to take place. And I mean exactly in the area where we're looking. We're looking right here for this area to start moving. Now, 12 days ago, we had a deep 7 here. A big, deep earthquake took place here, down below the plate. And that prompted me to issue a 14-day watch, which I don't normally do. Only when big, deep earthquakes strike do I issue these 14-day watches. So let's go over to the USGS map and just quickly show you the spots where we issued the warnings and talk about, again, we're on day 12 of a 14-day watch. 12 days ago, we had a big, deep earthquake right around in here in eastern central Indonesia, prompting me to issue the warning for Indonesia to see a shallower, larger event. Also for Japan, Nepal, and spreading out all the way to the Aegean Sea over here. Okay, so what's happened so far? And we also issued a warning for the coast of Chile. Coast of Chile has been hit. In the past several hours, take a look at what happened up in Japan. Obviously, we've got a spread of 5s going across the whole area. In the middle of it all, it just started to do this in the past few hours. A new outbreak, a new swarm, has broken out here next to Suwanee-Zajima volcano in the Ryukyu Islands just south of Kyushu. So that's taking place in the middle of what I would call the hot mess right there. That's where the green colored earthquake is the most recent 5 reported. Japan has started moving. However, we have not seen the big earthquake yet. Same for over at Nepal. Check it out. Right next to Nepal, into Myanmar and China, here's Nepal, the tiny country of Nepal. And right next to it, here at the bend in the plate, multiple 5s have taken place, just like in Japan, multiple 5s. Now, that's way less than what I'm looking for. Again, I'm looking for 2 near 7.0 earthquakes. 6.9s I'll accept, right? So right now we're in 5.0 range instead of 6. So I'm a magnitude off, but we're right on, spot on it next to the locations. And I'm not going to say we're at the location. Nepal is right here. We're right next to it here. And we're right next to Japan here. And this is part of Japan. But again, I'm looking, it's about the same distance in both countries. Off, I mean. So I'm still looking for the large earthquake. We have 2 more days to go for Indonesia, Japan, Nepal. As for the big quake all the way over here, it's an antipode quake from here, where we issued the warning last week, looking for the Kermadec, North New Zealand. Also, the 2 X's were struck, and the 2 X's in the South Pacific down at Point Nemo were both struck, and then the 6 on the coast of Chile. As we go to the north, check out the spacing and the earthquakes going across North America, Central America, into South America. 5.8 here on our arrow, heading over towards Colombia, and then a 5.8 up to the north, which they've now added in a 5.5, but 2 5.8s, 5.5, whatever you want to go with. Then, in the United States, 5.2 2 days ago in Northern California. It's really, looks like an arrow of 5s pointing over to the east, which then goes down to 4s. Do you see that almost arrow-like shape pointing over to the east? Now, this matches with this. Okay, so the arrow-like shape that we're talking about here really is just the plate boundary. It's pointing over to the east, and all edges are moving on all sides. On the USGS map, it even shows it. Okay, that's what's taken place in the last day. The update on the 2,000 or more people, killed, and God knows how many people have been injured. I want to say much love to the people in Morocco. And just so you can know, whenever there's a big earthquake on one side of the planet, this is just a well-known thing in the world of earthquake forecasting, which is not well known in the world of geophysics, that you have to watch the opposite side of the planet for a big earthquake to take place within a few days. This is according to the professionals who've done the research. They looked at over 5,000 different earthquakes and found out that there's a relation. And in case you don't know, let's see. Antipode earthquake. There it is. University of Oregon. Oregon EDU. I mean, come on, Oregon State. So what they found was in 5.6 and greater earthquakes, or maybe 6.0, I'm going on memory here. Was it 5.6 or 6.5? I'm dyslexic, right? Okay, there we go. So you can read the article. It talks about it. They looked at over 5,000 different quakes, and they found that in a majority of the cases, and the stats are in here somewhere, that it happens on a regular basis, 6.0 and greater, within 3 days. Pretty interesting, right? Okay, well, let's get that out of there, and let's get back over to the earthquake activity that struck in the West Pacific. Now, if we look on the opposite side of the West Pacific, where does that take us? It takes us to the Mid-Atlantic. And we're looking for the X's to light up with activity. I think we should probably tell the people in Iceland, keep an eye out for 6.0 plus level activity. Go ahead and issue that warning right now to the people in Iceland. It's been a while since you've seen activity, I think, in Iceland itself that's that big. Also, the X is out in the middle of nowhere. We have one out here by Ascension Island. Here's the tiny speck of a dot of Ascension Island, but up here by the X in the middle of the Romanche fracture zone. And then east of the Caribbean as well, out in the middle of nowhere. Now, I think it's going to be 6.0 level activity across the board. So we're looking at all the X's down here, again, as far south as South Sandwich Islands. Mid-Atlantic, North Atlantic, all of these should get hit in the next several days as the spread goes across. Same for the United States. The spread that goes across should be pretty significant. I also noticed that Hawaii has started to swarm and has now increased in magnitudes. I noticed the people maybe jumped on to Two Pineapples or doing Hawaii stream just to go check because I noticed there's a great amount of people in there for a late night event, and it's the swarm. People are feeling it across Kilauea. So there's a swarm taking place. We're looking for this to go up to 5.0 or near 5, about the same size as everywhere else up to the north, where it's all coming from. You can actually trace this island chain. Goes down to the Hawaiian island chain and branches off to Hawaii. And that's the way the wave flows from up here. You tend to see the same size quakes that strike up in Kamchatka. You'll see the wave divide, go one way over into Alaska, and the other way down here to Hawaii. When you see huge earthquake activity up here in Kamchatka, then you watch for volcanic activity to take place, increase down in Hawaii instead of earthquake. Well, I mean, you'll see earthquake too, but then you'll see some big volcanic event take place. So they're connected. This wave that I'm talking about travels from Kamchatka down, over, and into Hawaii. It doesn't stop there, though. Carries on over to the east. Goes right into Baja. You see the fracture zone. The wave. The wave also goes down, follows a crescent-like shape, or a letter C, bends over to the east. You can see it, the underwater segment there, and it goes over and bends into South Peru. And look what's right at the tip of where it goes in. A 4.8, a 4.4, and a 4.3, and a 4.4 added together equals 4.8. Anyway, go back up, and you go all the way back up here, and that's what fed in to begin with. The only thing missing is something about that size in Hawaii. Okay, now let's talk about the United States. Let's get into this. How about a rare earthquake at the Illinois-Indiana border, and another one up here in Maine? Yeah, a rare earthquake, Illinois, Indiana. Let's go see what's there. West Salem, Illinois. A 21-kilometer depth. Well, there's something here nearby that I think everybody should see. If you're from Illinois or Indiana or the Midwest United States, again, this is the Wabash Valley Seismic Zone, just north of New Madrid. So when you zoom in, you start looking around the location. Well, here, let me turn on my place marks. This might make it a little bit easier to identify. There we go. Okay. See where it says frac well? Just south down here, we've got frac wells located here for oil and gas. Now, it used to be controversial to talk about this, about the drill points, and the drill points with the earthquakes happening next to them. But now it's a well-established scientific fact that the drill points specifically for fracking, specifically for wastewater disposal and fracking. Wastewater disposal is just a fancy way to talk about putting chemicals down into the ground to break apart old shale and old oil wells to release more oil and gas. And they leave the nasties down in the ground anyway. So here's the earthquake. Here's the nearest marked frac well that I have from a previous earthquake in 2017. Now, I could probably take the time to zoom around in here and probably find some other closer wells than those 4 to 5 miles here. Look at this one. Here's one right here. You can see the shadow of the jack of the pump in here. This is at the Illinois-Indiana border region. Oil and gas. I wonder if we have a street level on this. Oh, wow. Let's go see. What does it look like at street level? Well, there you go. It's a little grainy, but when was this image? 2009? What did they have? A 2001 camera on top of the car? Some guy's driving by with a 1 megapixel camera taking floppy disk screenshots. Okay, let's just see if there's anything else closer now that we're within 2 miles. I always look 6 to 10 miles just because that's what the USGS used to look back before they decided to stop paying attention to such things. Now, you have to understand that the professionals and the USGS and everybody denied that there was a relation between the drill points, specifically oil, gas, and fracking. And when I came into the picture back in 2010, 2011, it was all a big game of denial. And I'm not talking about being in Egypt. And now it's an established fact. So again, this imagery date is as of 2016 is what we're looking at here. And this is not historical imagery. This is the most current that I can pull. Hey, look, here's one right here. I'm going to go ahead and mark it just for future reference so I don't have to scroll around so much. Oil well. And that's definitely oil. That's the jack and the pump. I don't think they're doing fracking there. And so, there's your rare earthquake right next to a drill point in the Midwest, just north of the New Madrid. Now, I'd like to go up into Maine and just see what's along the coast here, aside from the giant ancient volcanoes that used to be here along the coast. Lake Arrowhead, Maine. If you don't know about the ancient supervolcanoes along Maine's coast, let me show you. Maine supervolcano. Let's see if this comes up or if it's very well hidden. Yeah, Maine's volcanoes. Look at this. This is from Live Science in 2013, 10 years ago. Maine has supervolcanoes. Wait, what? Do they have a map? Dirt. No map? No map. All right. Anyway, they talk about it being along the coast. I'll just tell you right now. They talk about it being down along the southeast coast of Maine. Well, that being said, let's go put the coordinates in for this earthquake. Because that's where the earthquake is. There we are. I wonder if there's anything else here nearby. It's not listed as a quarry blast or any kind of explosion, is it? Let's just double check on that. No, it's listed as a 3-kilometer depth, southwest of Lake Arrowhead. I just wonder if there's anything else here worth mentioning. I don't think there's any oil or gas drilling up here. As far as I know, Maine doesn't have very much. Maybe they did in the past. What's this? What the heck is this? What do we got a bunch of machines out there for? Oh, God. Why do I always have to find the weirdest stuff? It can never just go smooth. Always got to find something weird. What the heck? Okay, so we have a quarry here that's nearby, but that might also be an old landfill of some kind. Well, usually when I start finding quarries and landfills, we have to start looking for some other things that are also nearby. Other odd features. Oh, especially when you have a high set of high voltage power lines also going next to the area where they've got the quarries. Okay. I'm not seeing anything there worth mentioning other than the high voltage power lines, the quarries, and the supervolcano that's located somewhere down here along the coast. Ancient. You won't see a crater there. It's somewhere here along the edge of the craton. Now, I will tell you about another set of volcanoes that are established and well-known, and that's right up here at the New Brunswick, Maine border. You can even see the outline of Mount Pleasant Caldera right here. Now, Mount Pleasant Caldera is oval-shaped, but it actually extends all the way down here to the coast again. Mount Pleasant, and you can find Mount Pleasant Caldera. I think it might even be listed. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if I've got our mountains on here. Yeah, mountains aren't coming up. Okay, that's okay. It's a feature that was turned off by Google a while ago, the mountains. So, all right, you used to be able to see it. It said Mount Pleasant Caldera. Not that it matters, but there it is. 1.5 earthquake right next to all of it. Then we get back to Illinois at the Indiana border, and we've got another drill point. Then we get into yesterday's update. We go into all the rest of the earthquakes that I showed you from yesterday. And we're talking about Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Those were all drill points, those pink-colored earthquakes there. Now, since doing my update yesterday, this also struck in southern Colorado, a 3.0 range earthquake, 2.9. Struck in southern Colorado right next to a series of, well, other drill points. I know, right? Like, how many drill points are we going to be going next to? But I just have to show them to you. This is my job to show it to you. My viewers demand that I show you and them what's at each location. That's what people ask me to do. If you ever wonder why I do this, people ask me to do it. Thousands and thousands of people telling me to look up the quakes and show them what I'm finding. A few detractors telling me not to, but do you ever listen to people who tell you not to do stuff? Especially when you don't know them. All right. Here we go. There we are. You see the shadows of the jacks of the pumps there. We're in southern Colorado. Our new 3.0 range earthquake in the middle of a pumping operation. Southern Colorado's border with New Mexico, and the pumping operations just carry on right on across. Doesn't skip a beat. Okay, I'm not against oil and gas either, just so everybody knows. I'm going to be showing you in just a moment here earthquakes at geothermal pumping operations, where steam, I'm not against steam, just like I'm not against oil and gas. I'm just showing you that the earthquakes are striking at these spots because they are weak points due to the fact that they're drilled, or in the far northeast up in Maine, because of Mother Nature punching up from underneath. Turns out the drill points from humans and Mother Nature's punch points from underneath for volcanoes, similar in this wave, is attracted to those weak points. It's proof that there's a physical wave, but it's also electrically induced. It's passing through the plate. It's dropping off the earthquake somewhat equidistantly spaced, going across the bend of the plate, going up to the northeast and to the northwest. The spacing on this. A standing wave, very low frequency, hundreds if not thousands of miles apart in between each peak. That's just what we're seeing today going across the edge of the North American craton. Up in the northwest, let's go look at the smaller earthquakes really quick and then just wrap up this earthquake update. Up in the northwest since yesterday. A few earthquakes? 2 or 3? 2 or 3 to report to you since doing my update yesterday. Look, here's yesterday's quakes, here's today. I don't know. Somebody hit the off switch. Same for over at Yellowstone. This is USGS. This is showing us the last 24 hours worth of quakes since my last update. The white earthquake struck today. The whitish pink, I mean. So down to the south we go, and there's not much more for me to bring into this since yesterday. Here's what hit since doing my update. All right, so are there any new areas to talk about? No. Geysers of California is still moving up here to the north. Geysers, of course, by its name, should tell you what's there. Geothermal is there in a volcano called Clear Lake Volcano. Up to the north even further, next to where our 5 struck, there's also a volcano here, which I failed to mention in my last update. So let me show you the volcano there, right next to where the 5.0 range earthquake struck. If you're from Northern California, you might not know about this. Here's the earthquake epicenter. Here's Brush Mountain Volcano, and you'll see there's all these power lines that come together right here next to this. Now what I've come to find out is people are telling me this is an old subdivision. Never mind the fact that it's in the shape of an antenna right alongside of a giant set of power lines that comes together right next to a series of volcanoes, which itself is right next to a U.S. military bunker ammo facility, which is right down here. Okay, so it's just chance that it's in the shape of an old TV antenna. All right, okay, we'll just go with that. As we go further to the south, right here along the California-Nevada border, nothing more to add to what I showed you yesterday, which is we're centered in the middle of here is Long Valley Caldera, where all 3 sets of these rings overlap in eastern California. That is Long Valley Caldera. That is right here. It doesn't mean that this supervolcano is going to erupt. It's just a sign of the seismic wave seeking out an area that's predisposed already due to fractures for the wave to come up. Fracture up and out and try to expend. Unfortunately, it's trapped down in the plate and it's making a giant arrow shape. You see how the earthquakes branch out and go over to the east in an arrow shape? That's why I've got a big arrow there to begin with. I noticed this 9 or 10 years ago. And the earthquakes were coming out of California, going across Nevada in an arrow shape, pointing over to the east. Once they get here, we go down to the south, down through Texas, back up, and back up the east coast. Okay? That's the way the flow goes. So back over to the west coast. What's out here where the arrow's pointing? Well, the arrow of earthquakes, I mean. Let's go pull the furthest most earthquake out to the east. Notice it just says Nevada. That's pretty creative for the triangulation of a quake, wouldn't you say? Considering the USGS normally triangulates from towns, I'm wondering why it's just labeled Nevada. Let's go in and see what's there. Looks like a desert road with a place mark that says Coyote Summit. What is Coyote Summit? A historical landmark of some kind. Well, that's really interesting. They've got a historical landmark right there. You know why, right? Well, you know the location, don't you? This is Area 51. Groom Lake. And right next to Area 51 are all of our nuke test sites. And these are underground nuke test sites, so they did underground testing here for many, many years. Google Earth has actually taken the time, the community on Google has taken the time to identify most of these. And you can just zoom in and click around. And U.S. Nuke Operation Campos, February 13th, 1978. I was 2 years old about. 20 kilotons. Just one of hundreds there. And then in the 1980s and 90s, we did more tests with the Europeans, with the French and the Brits. Came over here and did all these. Those were bigger, of course. But they were underground. That's where we are. We're right next to the historical landmark, right next to the nuke test sites in Area 51. The rest of the quakes go even closer to Area 51 and right across the nuke test site, which I just showed you here, and here. We'll mark them in blue. That's across the nuke site itself. Okay. Now, they're not doing nukes there now. It's just the same reason that we're getting hit at all these other sites. Predisposed. Fractures in the plate from all the blowing up from the nukes in the crust. Man-made faults have attracted the seismic wave to release there, as opposed to going further over to the east and hitting at the volcanic field. The Markagunt Plateau, over to the east where the arrow is. Now, what happens here is when a big flow comes across, this all lights up like we just showed you, and then this gets saturated so much it starts to break, and it spreads over to the east and goes over to the volcanic field, the Markagunt Plateau, here. So Mother Nature in the past would have just bypassed the nuke test sites and gone straight to the Markagunt and hit here, hence all the eruptions there. But now we get a spread of seismic going across the area that's broken apart. Okay. Finally, Southern California. Let's go down here and take a look. Ridgecrest, California. What happened today? Same thing that happened yesterday. A series of small earthquakes broke out down around the site where they're doing the rocket testing. I know, I can't show you anything. It's just a series of small earthquakes at the surface that are right next to a series of rocket test sites where they put the rockets into bunkers, and the earthquakes are going all the way around here where it says Sky Top and Cyril's Valley. And if you zoom in down here at Sky Top, you'll find these bunkers where they put a rocket in there and then they shoot it out at the surface and test the rockets. Anyway, that's where the series of earthquakes are breaking out across there. The rest going along the coast, I shouldn't need to elaborate on Geysers, California. It's a volcano, and then we go across the Bay Area. I do want to look up the lone earthquake at Half Moon Bay, California, up in the Bay Area by San Francisco. It's at a 9-kilometer depth, and I do not recall seeing a quake here before, at least not in this exact location. So let's just go take a look and see if there's anything there worth making a note of. It's out in the ocean, of course. Well, we've got some pretty interesting underwater mapping going on here. Hold up. Hold on. Look at this. Well, now, isn't that very interesting there along the coast like that? Don't tell me that's from dredging. Okay, is there anything else here worth looking at that we could get into right now? What about on land? Mavericks Beach, El Granada, Half Moon Bay, Poplar Beach. I'm just looking to see if there's anything of significance here nearby worth mentioning. Oh, well, never mind the giant radar station and satellite array that's there from the Pillar Point Air Force Station. Nothing go wrong there. We ain't hurting nobody, they said. Vandenberg Air Force Base, Space Force. Oh, shit. Spaceforce.mil. Should I click it? Dude, I'm already on every list. Here we go. We're not sock pupping it up at all, man. We're going right there. All right, here we go. Here's how you know it's an official U.S. government site. It says .mil. .mil stands for .military. Play the bionic man sounds as they're scanning my computer. Okay. The $6 million man. All right. Here we go. Let's carry on, shall we? We're getting a little sidetracked there. earthquake down below the satellite array. Hey, this is like down in Southern California. Hold on, let me get that open. Let's go open the USGS last 30 days of 4.5 and greater. There it is. Now, this is the 5.0 earthquake which struck the day the hurricane was making landfall, well, going across the LA basin. Let me get all the rest of the quakes out of there. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, for the same reason that I just brought up the radar station for the Air Force up to the north with the earthquake below it. This earthquake, when the hurricane was coming over LA, struck below the radar station. Let me pull the coordinates. Put the coordinates in. This is, again, the day the hurricane is going over LA as the eye is passing over this location. This location gets a 5.1 earthquake below it. So where's the NEXRAD radar? It is here. NEXRAD radar for observing the weather for the hurricane. Here's the earthquake. There's the radar. The distance is something like 1,000 feet. 200 yards or something. Now, there's an oil pumping operation over to the east, but when the hurricane eye is passing over the radar station that's observing it, the earthquake struck below it. So now here we have two instances of a somewhat significant earthquake striking below two different sets of radars in the same month on the west coast of the United States. I just have to bring that up because, well, there is a way for this to happen. It's not chance. Now, I'm not saying that the radar itself is causing the earthquake there. I'm saying Mother Nature's wave in the plate is attracted to spots that are electromagnetically predisposed, whether they're a fracture point in the crust, a drill point that's got some kind of deep shaft with metal lining on it, like a drill point, metal casement. That would be like a VLF antenna in the ground if it's 1,000 feet long or a few kilometers long and it's several of them in the crust. I don't see why that wouldn't act like a VLF antenna in the ground to pick up the wave that's going through the plate. And with the radar, we're talking about a conversion, simple conversion from AC, alternating current, radio wave in the air, to DC. And that happens naturally in efficiency scaling. As radio waves get absorbed by the Earth's magnetic fields, they convert back to DC power. They come out DC power. DC goes down the antenna, vibrates down, becomes AC. Then basically gets converted back to DC when it goes into the ground. That's what happens. It goes down to the core of the Earth. The more you put in, the more it goes down in the ground. It's just a simple law of physics. How ironic I mentioned that. So let's just recap. We're looking for 3 more large earthquakes to hit. We've already seen 3 hit. So check off 3 of the locations that have already been hit. And we're looking for 3 more to go. That's Japan, Nepal, and Indonesia. The one over here in Morocco is an antipode quake. It's just one that we would normally look for. I didn't issue a forecast for it. It happened the day after this one. We issued a forecast for this one. The day after the antipode gets hit. It's expected. Well, it's something we look for, and I shouldn't need to issue a warning on it because it's something that we should all know to look for at this point. It's an established scientific fact. And if people aren't touting that fact, antipode quakes, Oregon State EDU had no problem talking about it. Their big finding. I don't know why anybody else wouldn't want to repeat that information. Okay, so let's get back to it. Do you have an earthquake plan? The people over in Morocco likely were not prepared for this, and I don't blame them. They're not normally seismically prone for large earthquake activity. However, you can be prepared in general by having an emergency kit. Change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit. Important ID information, things to identify you. Maybe some extra food and water. You would have that. Have it ready to go into an emergency kit of some kind. I don't sell any of that stuff, but I'd recommend you have it. That way you're not dependent on someone else in case something happens. And if you have to evacuate, it'd come in handy for all sorts of things. Even if you just lose the power, at least you'll have a flashlight and batteries in your emergency kit. Or if you lose your keys, something as simple as that. So don't be scared. You need to be prepared. And at this time, the whole planet now, from Morocco back across all the way to the other side, down at New Zealand, you see it going by at the screen here now, up to Japan, and across the Mideast. And that's pretty much the whole planet, wouldn't you say? There's only a few spots missing for large earthquake activity to be present for it to be literally every region. We went from nothing to this in the past several days. When you go back and watch my video from 12 days ago, I'm openly, blatantly talking about the lack of large earthquakes that have, we're just waiting for this to now develop into something serious, and now here we are. And that was all based on the Big Deep earthquake from 12 days ago. The Big Deep 7 down below right here. Now the other deep earthquakes are raised high off the planet all the way around it. You see it? Looks like a pincushion. This is 48 hours worth of quakes. Go back to the start of the week. You can see the center of it. You can see where most of the activity is centered. Right around where that Big Deep earthquake came pushing up 12 days ago. It's spread out all the way over to here. It's spread out all the way down to here. And everywhere in between. There's only a few spots waiting to go. I'll have a new forecast out in the next 3 days. When we get to day 14, on day 15, I will issue a new forecast for the next 7 days. We won't do another 14-day forecast unless there's more new big, deep earthquakes, which I don't see very many right here. I see 4s and a 5. That is significant in its own right, a deep 5.6 below Indonesia here, and deep 4s here. In a normal week, I would be talking about that as a big deal. But with all this going on, that dwarfs this right now. The two sets of deeps here. Okay, man, we got a lot going on. Be safe, much love. If you've been paying attention to my community page, well, yeah, we got a little answer on AI. I'm not going to talk about it too much. It's just a little funny that AI is now offering its opinions about me. If you ask AI about Dutch Simpson, let me tell you what, it ain't good. No, not. It's not good, guys. Okay, anyway. I can say with a smile on my face, sort of. My God. All right, much love to all of you. I will be around if anything big goes down. I'll be back on at a moment's notice. I'm going to save this as a video and we'll put it out over on YouTube. Okay? Peace out. Much love, guys.